very pleased to be joined today by Kay McCorquodale, who is Executive Director of the Judicial Office for Scotland. How are you today, Kay?
I'm very good, and thank you for having me, Ali.
Great to see you. You actually join us today on the eve of your retirement, and I think we can say that today's actually your last Monday coming into work, which must be quite a significant emotional moment for you in many ways. So congratulations on that. You're now retiring after an exceptionally busy and successful career. You've covered many roles. So we're going to cover the whole range of that. But I wonder if we could start with your work. You began in the private sector, then moved over into working in the public sector. So can you tell our audience a little bit about that, please?
Yes, that's correct. I've had a very varied career starting in the private sector. I was very fortunate to become a partner in a large commercial firm before I was 30. And that was the firm I started with as a trainee. And I became an assistant in the litigation department and then left for a couple of years to work in London, where I qualified in English law. But Scotland brought me back and I was assumed as a partner shortly after my return. I then took a couple of periods of maternity leave. In those days, with my first child, I had 3 months off. I decided that I would take a bit longer with my second child, so I had 6 months off. I came back and I thought I wanted to work on a part-time basis. Now, unfortunately, in those days, and it's not really that long ago, being a part-time partner was not an option. So I decided to leave and I joined the Government Legal Service, working 3 days a week. So with hindsight, I think maybe I was promoted as a partner too early, not in age and experience, but just in the times. Because obviously nowadays there are many part-time partners and that's certainly the norm and there's much more support around that. But saying that, I've had the most fabulous career. I wouldn't change it for anything. Joining the public sector gave me the opportunity to make a difference to the lives of people in Scotland. So I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And joining the public sector, was it quite different from the private sector?
It was very different. I think you have to get used to all the acronyms. I didn't understand what all the different initials were for quite some time. Definitely new skills, which stretched me in many ways. I think they deliberately didn't put me into a litigation seat to start with. I did general advisory work, so I had to learn how to draft Scottish statutory instruments, instruct bill provisions, etc., in lots of different areas of the law, from health to rural affairs, local government. So it really opened up my horizons in different areas of the law. So that was very good.
Yeah, I'm sure wide and varied work. And on that note, we had a chat before recording. We ran through some of the different roles that you have had, of which there have been many, all featuring different aspects, different focuses. But I wonder if you could just give us an overview of the various roles you have performed throughout your career, please, and tell us a bit about that.
So when I did join the Government Legal Service, I was, as I said, I started off in the Scottish Government Legal Directorate, advising Scottish Government, starting off with areas such as rural affairs, etc. And this was just shortly before devolution. Then devolution arrived, and then I was able to work in different areas. I also worked for a period of time in the Office of the Advocate General, doing immigration and asylum appeals. So that was going back to my litigation roots. I also spent some time in the Scottish Parliament Legal Directorate. But I always managed to get back to what my favourite area of expertise was, and that's justice, in particular civil justice. And I've worked in inquiries, for example, the Trams inquiry, and also an investigation into the sinking of a fishing boat. But what really shaped my career was the opportunity to work in a number of judicially led reform bodies, such as the Scottish Sentencing Commission and the Scottish Civil Courts Review, that's Lord Gill's review, and the Taylor Review on expenses and funding of civil litigation in Scotland. So that's where I managed to hone my skills in many ways. As a result of having worked in these reviews bodies, I joined the Scottish Government in the policy rather than legal directorate as head of the courts and judicial appointments branch. And I led the team that ensured the safe passage into law of the Courts Reform Scotland Act 2014. So that really built on all the work I'd done in the Gill Review. And 6 years ago, I joined the Scottish Courts Tribunal Service, first of all as Director of Innovation and Development, where my key role was oversight of the digitisation of civil business. And in January 2021, I became Executive Director of the Judicial Office for Scotland, which is the role I currently have. And I'm retiring actually on Thursday this week. I can't quite believe it. I'm still in a bit of denial. But I'm not sure how many people can say this, but hand on heart, I'm retiring from the best role that I've ever had. I really enjoy my job. And I do feel that all the experience I've had in all the different roles we've talked about has led me to this role. It truly is a privilege to work with the Lord President, Lord Justice Clark, the Sheriff Principals and the other senior judges in Scotland. But that also includes all my colleagues in Judicial Office. In fact, I had a celebration in Parliament Hall on Friday night, which was very special with my Judicial Office colleagues, but also going back to my days with my first partner in private practice. It was a very special experience, and Lord President himself even gave me a thank you speech. Yeah, who would have thought that would be possible as a junior undergraduate at Edinburgh University? Yeah, very special evening.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, the roles that you've outlined show that you've been at the heart of many of the key things, the changes that have happened over the last few decades in relation to the Scottish legal system. And it's also great to hear that you are finishing up work, but still saying that it's great, because many people can say, I've made it, finally got to the finish line in a sense, when this is me no longer having to come in here. So it's always great when there's still, you feel happy in your work. And obviously there comes a point where you just say, oh, okay, but I do want to go and maybe pursue some more things for myself, really. But that's great to hear. So clearly you've enjoyed your legal career, and I think our viewers always tend to be very interested in what guests say are the most enjoyable aspects of their career in the law, but also what are the most challenging, because it is very much the case that we face both. What are your thoughts in relation to that?
I think the most enjoyable is actually the breadth of work which I've referred to, and actually lastly the opportunity to make a difference. And for me, that's really important when you work in public service. But also it's given me the opportunity to work with so many people from different backgrounds, including members of the judiciary, government ministers and colleagues, both within the private, public sectors and third sector organisations as well. And another part of my role is I'm a member of the SCTS executive team, where we decide the strategy and the people welfare issues, budgets, etc. But it also gives me an opportunity to visit courts and tribunals throughout the country. And for me, that's been a really important thing. In fact, last week I had my last trip, and that was to Stornoway Sheriff Court, where I met the staff there. And that's a real opportunity to speak to them one-to-one and to discuss the issues that they face within the rural courts, which can be very different to the issues faced by staff, for example, in Glasgow Sheriff Court. And I'm also conscious of the fact that I'm a senior leader, and as a woman, in particular, I see it as my role to develop people to enable them to achieve their full potential. And I'm always happy to provide any support, advice, mentoring, coaching, whatever's appropriate. And we are still in a situation where women are still the minority in senior positions. So I like to think that I can be seen as a role model, and I'll help people as much as I can. Very keen to let staff develop. So that's enjoyable things. So I think there's a sort of theme there. It's breadth of work, but also people. I'm very much a people person and really enjoyed that aspect of my work. Most challenging has been the pace of change and how it affects delivery of justice. And that was in part necessitated by the COVID pandemic, which underlined the need for us to be able to develop at pace and be able to provide an increasing digital service and conduct business remotely. Now, that did not come without its challenges, which I'm sure everyone in the legal profession will agree. So we had to bring with us external parties, which included the legal profession. So I am a member of the Law Society of Scotland's Civil Justice Committee, And during the pandemic, we set up a specific working group. And my role was really to explain what SES were doing, what actions we were taking, and why we were doing it in a certain way. For example, we decided that we would conduct business by telephone or by video camera. It wasn't always popular, but it was a necessity in the early days. And as part of that, as my responsibility, I also gave evidence to the Equalities, Human Rights and Civil Justice Committee of the Scottish Parliament. But I am proud to say that within a short period, there were no backlogs in civil business, but we did learn lessons, we consulted, and now the position has been clarified by the rules of attendance at hearings rules. So they just came into force on the 3rd of July this year. So that took a long time. There was a lot of consultation, a lot of debate, but we've got clarity there. And although I'm not directly involved in it, I am as a member of the SETS executive team, but position of criminal business is of course different as we continue to work through the backlogs, and that will take a number of years, and we keep the profession updated as to where we are with that through our management information. But one of the other things look at, before the pandemic, who would ever have thought that we would be conducting trials from jury centres which were established within cinemas? Really innovative solutions to difficult problems. So that, yes, the challenge is just reflecting on my career, just the last few years have been tough for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the enjoyable aspects sound great, and congratulations and all of that. The challenges, as you say, obviously we've had the pandemic, which is in no way really anticipated. We've also got the fast pace of change around technology and the opportunities and challenges that brings. And there are great opportunities there. It brings to mind, I wrote an article, I think it was about 2014, which concluded, which referenced my early times working in a legal office with basically no computer. And then it ran through the time, and it was in 2014, it was saying it won't be long until we've got a driverless car outside, we're appearing in a virtual court, and the judge has a device on that tells him or her that their stress levels are getting high. And I wrote that as a bit of a laugh. And then you just suddenly see these things happening really quickly. Now, we're not completely a virtual course, but as you say, the remote jury centres and these types of things really are things that were never in contemplation, have now occurred. And it will be really interesting to see how this plays out going forward as technology really develops.
Yes, I see that as what I see for the future of the legal profession, absolutely, and it's digitisation. So on the civil side, we're going to have the expansion of civil online for ordinary actions. We've got the rules rewrite project, which is currently seeking feedback on the merits of having one set of consolidated rules. And that holds true for criminal justice as well, because we've got the development of virtual custody courts, the rolling out of facilities for evidence by commission hearings, for the pre-recording of evidence in advance of a trial. We're taking evidence from professional witnesses and police witnesses remotely. So many exciting developments that we're going to have a day-to-day impact on the profession. And the other thing I would mention as well, we've got two significant bills which are proceeding through the Scottish Parliament just now, which will really affect the legal profession. We've got the Regulation of Legal Services Bill and the Victims, Witnesses and Justice Reform Bill. So both of these provide opportunities and threats for the legal profession, and we will work closely with them in that regard. And as you've already mentioned, we cannot forget the increasing use of AI with all its practical, economic and ethical implications. I, like you, have been involved in discussing this for several years. I attended a conference with Lord Tyre in Lisbon when they were already discussing having remote hearings, but also with judges being replaced for procedural hearings. And that was already happening, and that's probably about 6 years ago in the Netherlands. Yeah, absolutely. It's every time you pick up the journal, there's an article on it. It's really everybody's awareness is increasing in that. So yeah, it's something that's certainly going to come forward in the future.
I was lucky enough to be involved in the Law and Technology Conference with the Law Society this year. and we had the keynote speech from Sir Geoffrey Voss, Master of the Rolls, and he was talking specifically about the role of artificial intelligence in judicial decision making. And it does almost sound unreal or the stuff of fantasy or whatever, but it's actually controlled correctly, implemented prudently. Steps will be taken in that regard because it will work. It will only work for certain things, a bit like virtual hearings. It only works really well for certain things, and other things it just isn't quite right. But yes, incredibly interesting times. And as they say, the pace of change will never be this slow again and all of that. So I'm sure it's all going to suddenly be upon us before we even know it. It's happening. And now, fantastic. Well, it's great to hear about the enjoyable aspects of your career and the challenging sides. And it seems that throughout your career, you've enjoyed the work around reform and really making quite structural and seismic changes. And this is something that will probably resonate with a lot of our audience, the people who want to, on any level, whether it's in their own law firm, their own individual work, organisation, whatever that will be, but they will maybe trying to make a change. I've been there myself. You try to implement change, you do so with a spirit of optimism, but it can be very difficult. Now, you've done this on loads of occasions now. What advice would you give any lawyer or anyone who is seeking to make changes in their workplace?
It is difficult and it takes time, but what you need to start with is a clear idea of what you want to change, why, how are you going to achieve it, and what your preferred outcome will be. But then you have to consult with a wide range of interested parties, and you need to be able to listen to all the different perspectives. Do not become entrenched in your own views, because your views will change when you listen to other people, as you take account of their experience and their expertise. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you have to balance these competing interests as you come to a final outcome. So for me, collaboration is absolute key, followed by consultation. But you also need to be able to compromise. And at the end of the day, you need clarity. You need to be able to set out what you want to achieve and how you're going to do it.
Yeah, very wise words, and I'm sure they have been formed by the many challenges that you've faced as you've run through projects of this type. Because I think it can be easy to start such a process with your own vision around something, and then you work to make that happen, and then that's not the process at all.
That was definitely the case when, for example, the Gill Review and the Taylor Review, you would go in with set ideas, but then the more you research you did, particularly in other jurisdictions, but then you spoke to every different sort of representative bodies, whether it was representatives from the family bar, the commercial bar, the personal injury bar. Each had their own competing priorities, and sometimes it was really difficult to come to a compromise that everybody was happy with.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was impossible, but then you just had to make a decision as what was most appropriate. And that's how reform happens. And it's not easy, and people quite often don't like it. I would say, I'm allowed to say this because I'm a lawyer myself. Sometimes the legal profession can be the most difficult to adapt to change, but you need to bring them along with you and listen to them. And great representations from the faculty and the Law Society, and it's great to be able to engage with them.
Yeah. You almost took the words out of my mouth, because I was going to ask you about how difficult it is to get lawyers to embrace change. There's maybe a lawyer mindset, an aversion to risk, a pride almost at times in not changing, keeping traditional methods. So how difficult has it been for you to get adoption by lawyers? And if there are challenges around this, what do you think are the best strategies to overcome resistance? Even in the face of a great plan, you could develop a great plan. Someone can just have adopted a mindset saying, I really don't want to buy into this. So how have you managed to navigate that?
Yes, I have come across that in many instances, and I refer in particular to the work of Gill and Taylor. For example, the change in the privative jurisdiction limit that the Gill Review suggested, raising it in the Sheriff Court. There was a huge outcry around that, and everybody was saying, well, that's a death of the court session, there'll be no litigation there, and the bar will wither away. And that's not come to pass. And it was the same when family actions used to be only heard in the court session. So time does move on, but For me, again, it has to be collaboration. You have to be able to listen and balance competing interests. As I said, when we were looking at the Gill Review, particularly the personal injury lawyers did not want that change in jurisdiction, and commercial lawyers as well. But we have to work with people and listen to them. And the most recent example of that, as I've said, is the rules and modes of attendance. They've been worked up for quite some time. We had a conference 2 years ago when we talked about remote hearings would be heard and in what case, of what instances, and that all refined into where we are now with the rules which came into force on the 3rd of July. Some people are still not happy with it. I think the legal profession prefer them to be able to each sort of pursue a defender, say, well, this is how we want it, and not leave it to the judiciary to decide at the end of the day. But it is working well, and we hope, obviously, with every rules, we keep an eye on them, and we're collecting the stats as to how often there will be remote hearings, whether they'll be heard in person, whatever, and then that will allow us to review the rules and see if they're working properly. So yes, consultation, process of review at the end of it all as well. I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. So endless communication, endless listening, and ultimately the decision making as well has to happen. You've got to fall on one side of the argument somewhere, implement the change, but then, as you say, monitoring the success of that and making changes, if they're valid ones. I think that builds a collaborative process around it all, which builds confidence around future change. So talking about future change, as you sadly depart from the profession, what would be your rallying cry for the profession in the months, years, decades that lie ahead? What would you say to them?
You've said it. We need to embrace change. Life does not stand still, and we will all be asked to deal with new challenges, whether that's on a personal or technological front, and we have to be able to deal with that. We need to embrace it. And I think one thing I've learned with being in all the roles I have been in is human contact, getting to know people and being able to work with them. That's one thing I've been very lucky to do. I've got so many contacts, and I've been able to, when we're discussing new change, able to speak to them and make those personal connections. Can't get over that. That's really important. I personally am very confident in the future of the legal profession. In fact, I have to say one of my daughters has joined me in the ranks. But saying that, I do have concerns regarding some areas, and in particular the criminal bar. Now, the Scottish Government has convened a working group to consider the future of the legal profession in Scotland, and that's jointly chaired with the Law Society of Scotland and the Faculty of Advocates. And the purpose of the group is to examine the evidence and propose improvements to address the challenges of recruitment and retention within the legal profession. And I understand that one of the areas it will focus on is the difficulties in recruitment in the criminal bar. So that gives me some confidence that at least the problem is being recognised and hopefully addressed. But we need a diverse profession that reflects the society that it serves. The legal profession should not only be a great place to work, which it is in my view, but it should be a great place to work for people from all walks of life. And it must provide access to a range of perspectives and life experiences. And in that comment, I include all members, from young students right up to senior members of the judiciary. So after a rewarding career of over 30 years in the legal profession, I think it's my time to now give something back. I'm delighted to announce that I've recently been appointed as a trustee of the Law Scot Foundation, which supports, for those of you who don't know, supports academically talented students from litiged backgrounds in Scotland through their legal education journey, whether that's providing monetary support, mentoring, coaching, etc. It's a fantastic organisation. So I'm really excited about that. And in that role, I hope to make some small contribution to the future of legal profession in Scotland.
Significant congratulations on that. And I do have to say that I too will be joining you as a trustee for the Law Scot Foundation, having recently been advised that my application to do so had been successful. So I very much look forward to working with you in relation to that. It's a great organisation. The need for diversity, as you say, in the legal profession is really important, and it does great work, and hopefully we can work together with the entire team to do even more.
That's exciting. Congratulations to you too, Ali. I very much look forward to working with you. As I said, you know, my whole career has been making connections, relationships. So just leading to this interview today, we now know each other and we'll be working together in the future. So that's excellent. That's good news.
Absolutely. No, that's brilliant, and that's great news. So I very much look forward to that. And just on a personal note for you, Kay, before we finish up, so now that your diary is going to probably for the first time in decades actually be empty, I'm sure there are many things that you're looking to do personally, or the trip that you always plan to take, or anything. Is there anything you'd like to share that's going to be your focus over the next few months?
I'm going, you're right, I'm going on holiday. I'm going to France to follow Scotland in the Scotland Rugby World Cup.
So fantastic.
Very much looking forward to that. And yeah, just hopefully spending more time with friends and family and playing more golf. But I have to say, I won't improve any better, but I do enjoy playing and it's good to get outside. But I don't think my handicap will improve that much, but I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, the Rugby World Cup will be fantastic, but I would agree with you in relation to golf. Having played at the weekend in a golf outing, the more golf really doesn't in any way improve my game, certainly, because you can have one moment that you think, I'm doing okay at this, and then literally within seconds you're at the depths of despair. There's nothing quite like it, actually, but I suppose that's what it is that keeps us coming back.
It's the sort of thing you can play with a friend and you'll start at the same place and end up at the same place. You might take a few more shots than them, but you'll get there eventually.
Yeah, no, it's a great social game. So that's fantastic to have more time to be doing that. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I understand that even as you finish up, you still continue to have a very busy diary and will be in meetings literally to the last moment of your time in office. So I massively appreciate you taking the time to talk to me at Hey Legal, and also for the Shaping Your Success channel that we operate with the Law Society of Scotland. I'm sure there's many aspects of what we've covered there that will be of interest to our audience. And I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to cover before we finish up, or you're happy with that?
No, I'm happy with that. So thank you for allowing me to share the moments of my career with you. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you, and congratulations again on your career, and enjoy the rugby and the golf, and I'm sure it will improve. Thank you very much.